So, we're approaching the end of the year, thank God. And before I actually get around to my best of or worst of list, I decided to drop this little random retro review because it's a movie that I've always wanted to talk about, and it's kind of fitting for this time of the year. The Apartment came out in 1960, was directed by the great Billy Wilder, and stars Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, and Fred MacMurray. Jack Lemmon plays Cece Baxter, who is an employee at an insurance company in New York City. He's just a lonely guy who has his own apartment, and he loans it out to some of the company managers who want to use it for one-night stands with women in exchange for him moving up into the company and becoming a manager himself. At the same time, he's in love with this elevator operator named Fran, who's played by Shirley MacLaine. And as Baxter's moving up within the company, he soon finds out that his boss, played by Fred MacMurray, might be having an affair with the woman that he loves. So, wacky comedy! Now, I saw The Apartment for the first time 2 years ago, around this time between Christmas and New Year's. This isn't the first Billy Wilder movie I've seen, though, and if you don't know who he is, he's the man who made such great movies as Double Indemnity, Sunset Boulevard, Some Like It Hot, and The Apartment. This guy was considered to be one of the best directors working at the time he was alive, and for me personally, I think The Apartment is his masterpiece. And ignoring the fact that it won Best Picture the year it came out, it's just got so many great things going for it. For one, the performances. Your three main leads and most of the other characters are really down to earth and likable. Cece Baxter as a character is a very easy guy to latch onto, and it also has to deal with the fact that Jack Lemmon is just so phenomenal in this movie. He's very natural, likable. His comedy is very down to earth that would almost border on goofy at some point, but it never goes to the point where it takes you out of the movie. It's a very natural kind of goofy. His character, for me personally, is easy to relate to because he's that really nice guy who's rather charming, but he's just lonely in his life, and he doesn't really have the nuts to say no in certain situations. I get why he can't say no in this movie, because he wants to move up in his company, and the only way he'll do it is if he basically whores his apartment out to these scumbag. And the only way he'll move up, in his case, is basically whoring out his apartment to scumbag managers who want to cheat on their wives. So you can kind of buy it. It's not really a great reason, but you can at least meet him halfway there. And at the time this movie came out, that little aspect of the movie was considered to be scandalous. I mean, keep in mind, it was 1960. It was the same year when Psycho was the first movie to show a toilet flushing on camera, and the world just went, scandalous. But bottom line, not to get sidetracked, Jack Lemmon is fantastic in this movie. And Shirley MacLaine is very adorable and also really likable. She's really funny as well. She has lots of personality. And you can see why Jack Lemmon is attracted to her in the movie, because she just has that spark. Then we have Fred MacMurray. Out of the three main actors in this movie, he's probably the least interesting of the bunch. That's not to say he's not interesting. It's just the other two actors are so good that he is just kind of the third wheel. He's pretty much the boss in the movie who's having an affair with Shirley MacLaine. And it's an asshole thing to do, but he's not really depicted as an asshole. He's just a regular guy who just does asshole things. You don't really dislike him. At the same time, there's nothing about his character that I can really sing the praises of like I did with Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon. One thing that's also really worth noting is the cinematography. It's filmed in black and white, and it looks absolutely beautiful. And because this movie is 56 years old, I really cannot imagine how it would look in color. I imagine it would be like The Artist, where it wouldn't have worked in color. It just would have looked too awkward. And I'm glad that they decided to choose black and white to film it in, because there's a part in this movie where it gets really dark. Now, keep in mind, this is mostly a comedy, but at the middle of the movie, there's a point when Shirley MacLaine's character almost commits suicide in Jack Lemmon's apartment, And because it's filmed in black and white, you really get the contrast of how dark the film has become, not in just what's going on in the story, but how the film looks. When we're at that middle point in the film, there are a lot of shadows, and you just get this gloomy, almost hopeless feel for it. Not completely hopeless, but in the sense of, this really brings the movie down a lot. But it works because it feeds into the emotion of what's going on. And because you really love Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine, you're invested in what's going on. You're never turned off. And one of the more famous things about this film is the final line. A lot of Billy Wilder's films end on like one final iconic piece of dialogue. In Sunset Boulevard, it was, "I'm ready for my close-up." And in this movie, it's, "Shut up and deal." Now, the context is that Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon finally get together. I mean, spoiler alert for the 56-year-old movie, but they get together. Jack Lemmon says, "I love you" to Shirley MacLaine as they're about to play a card game, and Shirley MacLaine just says, "Shut up and deal." There are a lot of ways to interpret this final line. My impression of this line is just her way of saying, "I love you too." Similar to how in Empire Strikes Back, the famous "I love you, I know" line, when Leia and Han express their feelings for each other right before he's about to be frozen in carbonite. Man, the one break I take from a Star Wars video and I have to throw a Star Wars reference in. But that's just the impression I got, and it's a really fantastic way to end a, dare I say, brilliant movie. If I had one nitpick about this movie, and it is a nitpick, there's a point in the movie when we meet Shirley MacLaine's brother-in-law, and he just comes across as this really stereotypical New York Jewish cab driver, complete with a jacket, a hat, just a tough guy attitude. And with all of the other characters feeling very realistic and down to earth, he comes across as little over the top and cliched. But again, he's only in a small section of the movie and doesn't ruin from what is a masterpiece. The Apartment is a brilliant movie all around. It's well acted, well written, it's funny, it's heartfelt. And the reason why I love watching it at this time of the year is because it's set around Christmas and ends with the New Year. So I think this movie is a perfect way to transition into the New Year. And given how shitty 2016 has been, I think everyone should watch this movie now more than ever. So my rating for The Apartment is to get off your ass and go see this right now. You cannot die without watching The Apartment at all. And in terms of Billy Wilder's films, I've said that this is my favorite. With Double Indemnity and Sunset Boulevard, like, I'll watch those on occasion, but I have to be in the right mood for them. With The Apartment, I'm always in the mood to watch it. It's a movie that I could watch over and over again. It's that great. And that's my review for The Apartment. In terms of future reviews, I don't know if I'll be able to do any because I am working on my best and worst of list, as well as my 2016 wrap-up video, in which I talk about all the new movies that I've seen but I haven't reviewed. So definitely keep your eyes open for those 3 videos. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on The Apartment, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you, there is only one.